Hello, my name is Chelsea Belicky. I went on the FSA trip to South Africa, and I was part of the track that studied the interaction between the media and South Africa's social change. So, one of the first correlations I made between my experience in South Africa and my experiences here at MSU are just noticing the little things that everyone kind of takes for granted that other people might not know about. Um, so, a little background about myself. I was born and raised in Brighton, Michigan, which is like 95% white. Like, even the other schools in our county will call us whiten, kind of making fun of the fact that they have more diversity than we do. So this was part of the reason that I was very excited when I got accepted to go on my FSA trip, and also why I wanted to go to a bigger university rather than a smaller one. South Africa is about 80% black, so even just looking out of my window where I was staying was a lot different than like looking out a window back at home. And even the people there who are white, which are called Afrikaners because they are from Dutch descent, are a lot different than we Americans are. There's this one night I was eating dinner at a restaurant and we were just talking to some of the local Afrikaners and I mentioned the game patty cake and he just kind of like looked at me and he's like, "What is that?" So I kind of like showed him, with my hands and he was kind of like, "Oh, okay." But it was just weird for me that someone wouldn't know that because in America, that's like a simple game every single child plays. So it kind of caught me off guard realizing that like people in other countries don't have like little things like that, or at least not the same ones that would be recognizable just by a name. So at MSU, I've had similar experiences with that. My roommate is from New York, so even though we've both grown up in America, there's still little things that like we'll do here in Michigan that like confuses the heck out of her. Like when we were first meeting people, they would say like, "Oh, I'm from the UP," and she like looked at me and had to like ask me what that meant. And that was weird for me too because like we in Michigan we grow up hearing like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to like the UP this summer, like my cottage up in the UP, my family in the UP." So it doesn't even occur to us that nobody else knows what the UP is. They just know it as the Upper Peninsula. It was also the same with using our hand as a map. Like people would say, "Oh yeah, I'm from like right here." And she thought that was so weird. She's like, "Why is everyone using their hand?" But again, to us, this is something that like Michiganders grow up with. So we don't think about the fact that people from other states don't know. Even friends I've made from Illinois, which is so close to us, have no idea why people use their hands as maps. And so one of the other relationships I found between my FSA trip and MSU was that my FSA trip actually made my first couple weeks at MSU easier. All my friends from home went to a school that at least one of our other friends went to, and I was kind of that odd one out. Like I have acquaintances here from my school, but no one I'm really close to, and the majority of them aren't Lyman Briggs students like myself, so they live absolutely nowhere near me. And on top of that, I can also be kind of shy. So I was incredibly freaked out about moving in and trying to make friends when I'm too scared to even say, like, "Hi, my name's Chelsea." Um, so I know at the beginning of my trip, when we were just at orientation, the professors would all talk about how we were going to become super close to everyone and we'd be telling them things that you wouldn't normally tell people. And I'm sitting there like, "Okay, yeah, like you just say that to make the trip sound good. Like, how could I become close to 16 other people in such a short period of time?" But they ended up being right. I noticed within a couple days of my trip, I actually had friends and we would like laugh and talk and tell personal stories that usually would take me like a month or two to feel comfortable telling to people. And even though I wasn't close to everyone on the trip, we were all still friends. Like I'll still see people walking around campus, like maybe in a cafeteria or riding their bike, and we all smile and say hi to each other. And our group was pretty cohesive. Virtually everybody got along. There weren't really any problems. And I also had 4 people from the trip living in my building and 2 of them on my floor. So day 1, moving in and walking around and meeting everybody, I saw one of my friends, Marilyn, and I was like, oh, hey, what's up? Like, how's your last 2 weeks been? And everybody just kind of like looked at us and they're like, whoa, how do those 2 know each other? So it's kind of cool being that person that everyone's a little bit jealous of because they have friends. And it was also a lot more comforting seeing someone that I knew and that I was friends with and knowing that they were just a couple doors down. So one of the things I'm looking forward to about in my future is studying abroad again. Once you travel once, you don't want to stop. And I'd love to go somewhere for a semester or even an entire year because my time in South Africa felt so short, but every second of it was filled with fun and new experiences. We toured an underground cave where 2 of the oldest skeletons related to the human ancestry were found. We rode a cable car to the top of Table Mountain, where our elevation was so high that we were actually above the clouds. And we also toured Robben Island with a former prisoner who was friends with Nelson Mandela, and he was even able to get a key and let us go inside and look at Nelson Mandela's cell. I ate ostrich meat, which I'd never even heard of here in America, and it was one of the best tasting things I've ever had in my life. We also got our faces painted on our last night there at this like authentic African restaurant, and it had like drumming, dancing, singing, and like African style dishes. So even if I don't go back to South Africa when I study abroad and I choose somewhere like Europe or the Middle East, I still plan on going back to South Africa one day, even just as a vacation, so I can just get more of that. Another thing I want to do is get involved with tours or like student panels for the incoming or prospective freshmen. I know the first time I toured campus, one of my tour guides was talking to me about her best friend who had gone on one of the FSA trips and how her friend like absolutely loved it, was on fire, and they actually went to South Africa, and she told me that she was super jealous that she didn't make that decision to go because it really is something that is once in a lifetime. Like you can't be a freshman like every single summer and go on that trip. So like, you really only have that experience once. And so hearing that really made me want to go, even though it wasn't even like stories about being in South Africa she could tell, just knowing that people loved it and other people were jealous of it and like wish they would have gone really encouraged me to like want to go to MSU and sign up for that so I could have that experience and not always be wishing that I would have. And I'd also love to be able to tell my firsthand stories to people. I think that everybody in their lifetime has these different experiences where they just kind of grow as a person. And for me, a lot of that happened being alone in South Africa, like no parents, and kind of at the start of like my college and my adulthood. And I really want to help encourage people to kind of take the same route I did to grow like that. And I also have like so many just silly memories from when I was in South Africa. Like we went on the safari and we ended up getting charged by an elephant. Or we also played with these like local kids at a preschool. And even though they didn't speak English, we could still like play with them. I was with some of the younger kids, so I just like held them and comforted them when they cried. And some of the other people were teaching games like patty cake to the kids, or like they sang head, shoulders, knees, and toes. And then the kids in turn taught them something. So even though there was a language barrier, it almost didn't even matter. So that was a cool experience. We also got to go on a tour of downtown Johannesburg with 2 students from the Artist Proof Studios, which is an art school in downtown Johannesburg. Or even just silly things like back in our hotel, I played dominoes with a couple of my friends, or my friend Bree and I decided to put butter all over our lips as a joke. So yeah, I really want to help future freshmen at MSU make that choice whether or not they want to do something like that. And I had an awesome time, and I'm so grateful that I was able to go on that trip.